please state on behalf of the state of Missouri?
30 years. For the friends, family, and community of 15-year-old Tammy Rothgate, it has taken 30 years to know what finally happened to her the day she got into a vehicle with the defendant and vanished, never to be seen again. We know now, through an accomplice, somebody who actually committed the acts with the defendant, that Tammy was raped, strangled to death, her body stored in the accomplice's home until the defendant could find a spot to throw it in the ground and leave it to rot. That's what we know now. But it wouldn't be until around 2009, 25 years later, that we would get a break in the case. We're going to go back to May 16th of 1983. Tammy was 15 years old, lived with her mom and her older brother in a house across the street from Eldon High School. Eldon was a small town, still is, close to Lake of the Ozarks. And May 16th for Tammy was no different than any other day. It was a school day, and her usual habit was to get ready and leave a little bit early, walk across the street, and hang out with friends. She was a social butterfly, had lots of friends. And she did that day. She left her home, got to school about an hour early, and was hanging out with a friend outside the school having a smoke. She wasn't supposed to, she was 15, but she was having a smoke. When a car, driven by the defendant, pulls around the corner, and the defendant waves for Tammy to come over. He's driving her brother's car, and the only thing unusual was that Tammy had gotten in his car and wrecked it the night before. So he was driving her brother's car. She goes over when he waves her over, and there was a conversation. The girlfriend does not hear the conversation, but Tammy says, "I'll catch up with you later," and then gets into the passenger side and will vanish forever. There was a passenger in that car with the defendant that got out of this two-door car to let Tammy in. The identity of this passenger would remain a mystery to law enforcement and investigators for another 25 years. Teresa, the girlfriend, who's going to come testify, did not know who he was. She did not recognize him. And so when this young man got out and left her in the back seat, she didn't know. Then the defendant drove off, and Tammy was never seen again. From law enforcement's perspective, when Tammy didn't show up after school, go home, wasn't seen at the school, they began an investigation. They began looking for him. They never found him. Mom looked through her stuff for any clue as to what happened to her. Nothing. They talked to Teresa, who identified and was able to talk about the car. They identified the car. But they couldn't identify who the passenger was. And was the defendant a person of interest? Absolutely, he was. He was a person of interest. But two things were missing for law enforcement, and they would be missing for a long time. One of two things would be necessary for them to arrest him, to charge him with any sort of crime involving Tammy. Without one of these two things, no matter what behavior the defendant engaged in, and we'll talk about what behavior he engaged in after Tammy vanished, they couldn't do a thing about it. They didn't have a body, and not just a body, but a body that would tie back to something the defendant did. And they didn't have an eyewitness. Not just an eyewitness to see her get in the car, but an eyewitness who could tie someone to doing something nefarious to Tammy. It's not to say they didn't have suspicions. That morning, the defendant borrowed the car saying he was going off to work, but he never went off to work. There was a missing period of time after he picked up Tammy that was not accounted for. He did pop up on the radar. 7:30 is when Tammy went missing. Around 9 to 9:30, he pops up at his sister-in-law's house, unexpectedly asking to borrow a shovel. And insistent that she keep telling him the time. What time is it? What time is it? Later that evening, he leaves the state of Missouri. No body is found, and eventually he gets in contact with Tammy's mom. By the way, Tammy's mom and him were dating. That's how he had contact. He was the boyfriend of the last couple months. He didn't live in the house, but he did stay the night from time to time. And it would take us a while to know that there was maybe more to that story than just him living there, as connects him to Tammy. But at the time, all they knew was mom's boyfriend picked her up, Tammy vanished, we don't know who the pastor was, we can't find her. And defendant came back, offered to help mom search for her daughter, claiming that her daughter was secretly in contact with him. And that to the exclusion of Tammy's mother, her brother, her family, her friends, her teachers, or any other human being, he was the only one she was having contact with. And that effectively they couldn't break up. They had to stay together. Mom didn't